Hey, in this segment, I wanted to touch on something the planning for the spindle of the Quorn, and something I realized that I haven't seen this point emphasized anywhere else. So let me describe what my process. My first step was to look in the book, and this is from page 54 of my book, detail 46. I noticed this curious item here. You can see my little question mark out to it. I wasn't sure what that detail item was referring to because it's not really clear, and the text of the book doesn't really go into any detail about it. So I thought before I finish my planning, I would check other resources and maybe ask for some help. Well, this is a Xerox copy of the plans that I bought from Gary Martin, and at least these ones do have a line drawn from the detail to the inside of the end cap, but I still wasn't quite clear on what in the world all those grooves were for. I even checked some of my other resources, the Duncan's Metal Pages, and he has a very nice write-up about the spindle, and just like a lot of other people, he talks at length about the trepanning, those annular grooves that go on the front and the back of the end caps, but he didn't really talk about making any grooves on the inside of the end cap. And on the computer, you can actually click on this picture and blow it up, and you can see the inside of his spindle end caps are smooth. So it's curious to me that I don't think he put them in there. I think he did use the trepanning, of course, for the annular grooves. And anyway, I was planning on using the two-piece method. So I put the question out to the groups.io group, and Charles, I think it was, came up with this really good answer. He sent me a picture of his original drawings that he got. I think these were from Model Engineering Services, and you can see the little crooked arrow there that points from the detail drawing to the inside of the end cap. So that makes it very clear, and he's told me that that's a labyrinth seal. I really wasn't familiar with that, so I googled labyrinth seal and got some great information about them. So you might want to check it out. Apparently it creates a little airflow that keeps contaminants out of the spindle. So let me show you here. I ground up a tool. I used, let me get my little magnifying thing on there. I used some of these, this is 3/16" drill rod that I had previously used for the George Thomas project and the non-geared rotary table, and I ground up a 1/32 inch wide, and it's deeper of course than a 32nd of an inch, but a little tool. This has previously been heat treated, and it should work fine for cutting those little annular grooves in the end caps. So that's the detail tool that I've made up, I've ground up, and that's the purpose for it, and I'll talk more about that in the actual machining video. Okay, so here it is. This is actually Tuesday night of the week following the spindle housing episode, and I'm working on the inside parts of the spindle end caps. As you can see, if you followed along how I do projects, I write out my plan of work. And one thing I wanted to notice or make note, I think I've talked about it before. Well, first of all, let me bring it up to speed. I forgot to bring my camera out here last night. So first thing I did, I found a chunk of, this is slightly under 1 inch steel, and you can see how nasty and rusty it was. So I put the 3-jaw chuck on just to make life simple. And what was great, because I could turn it down to the desired outer diameter of 0.946 actually in my case, because my end caps were a little bit larger than they should be on the inside. So I made the outside diameter the size that I needed, and actually I needed to make a little space for clearance for the Loctite, the green Loctite, to work to hold these things together. So I did, and once I turned that, it felt a little bit too loose to me. So I remembered something that Tom Blau had done on his Quorn. I think he did it for the actual base, for the vertical column, but people do this a lot. I put a light knurl on there, as you can see, and it really gives me a good fit now. So it's actually, it feels a little snug when you slip the part on, but it's, you know, there's clearance there, obviously, room for the Loctite, the green Loctite, to work. And as you can see, so This gives you the instant trepanning type clearance that you need. So it's a lot easier, to me it is anyway, to make these things as two-piece assemblies. So that's the end cap. I've turned it to the desired outside diameter. I put a light knurl, then I turned the shoulder down the 193 thousandths down to 810 on the outside, and then I drilled and bored. I drilled out to 21/32, and then I just had to bore just a little bit more to get my .690 interior space. So now that that's all done, there's the same old boring tool I've been using for all this. Tonight I can use my custom made, I think I showed this before, 1/32 inch little tool here, a piece of drill rod that's I'll be able to lock it in the tool holder, and then make the series of little grooves here. This is obviously a blown up version of it, but supposedly 4 little 1/32 inch wide by 1/32 inch deep grooves on the inside of this. And then once that's done, I'll be able to cut it off and then make another one and then Loctite them all together. So I'll be working on that in the next couple of days, and I will bring you back and show you how it goes. Well, this is kind of funny. I got all set to make my cuts with my specially made tool, got it all set up, set the center height, and I realized, that bend is not going to fit. So my first thought, instead of changing this, I've found my 3/16 inch drill rod, and I have a piece of it, and I've chucked up in my big vise. I'm going to heat it up and try to bend it so that it will go in there, and if I can do that, then I'll go ahead and grind a separate tool. Alright, the custom drill rod boring bar thing did not work. I got it in there, got it all set up, but it's got too much spring in it. It just deflected when I tried to cut. So, getting frustrated with that, I just took a little ordinary boring bar and I've ground it back a little bit. I've marked it out. I wanted to take the video before I finish grinding it because I'm about to grind away those marks, but that's a 1/32 inch layout line. And so the tip, I should be able to grind to a 1/32 inch tip and get the little grooves that I need. So we'll see. Hopefully I'll try that tomorrow. Okay, I just took the first cut with the modified boring bar, and you can't see it really good from here, but well, you can see that I blued the inside of the hole, and you can see where the cut was. I'll go ahead and make the other couple and bring you back. But I got the idea for the bluing from Quinn from Blondie Hacks. Has a good video about internal threading, and in fact she shows making some internal threading tools, and she glued the inside of the hole that she was threading, so good idea. Okay, that's hot off the presses. I just made the 4 notches. Came out pretty good actually, so I'll clean that up a little bit, cut that off. And the beauty of this is I should be able to repeat that. Like I said, just cut it off the right distance, and then the whole center is already bored out. I've bored out 1 inch to that exact right diameter, so it should be pretty easy to make the second part. Okay, here I am making the second one. Not much to see here. I'm turning down, I cut off the first one, cut off the shoulder. I'm just slowly, methodically machining the way down to 810 thou, a little shoulder that's 193 thou wide. I'm using my DRO there, so you can see I've got 40 thousandths depth of cut, and going to 193. There. Okay, coming back. I'll just keep whittling away till I get to 810. Alright, here's the second one with the grooves in place. Looks pretty good. I just finished turning them. I haven't cleaned up the inside either yet, so I'll clean them up and cut it off, and we'll be ready to Loctite them. Okay, here we have the 2-piece end caps. They've been Loctited together. I cleaned them off with acetone and then used the green Loctite. As you can see, a bunch of the Loctite soaked out when I first put them together. I actually took this one apart and redid it, put more of the Loctite on, and it seemed to fit better if I flipped it over. So I've got it flipped over. I've got a steel vice jaw weighting it down on the back, and then I've got the other one is flipped right side up, so you can see the instant trepanning design basically that you get from this. So hopefully we'll let them dry overnight and it'll be good. The next thing, put them in the 3-jaw chuck and make that recess in the back of both of them, and then make an arbor that I can put on the center, bolt them down, and use my hex collet block to machine the little grooves on the outside of them for tightening. Just a quick clip of the lathe on autopilot, if you will, auto feed. I'm taking off a little bit, just evening out the front piece. As you can see, it's one thing to look out for with the 2-piece, no trepanning end caps. You might end up with a little bit oddball sizes. So I already have to turn a relief in the back side of these things, but I'm evening up the fronts. And one of them was thicker when I made it, so I've gone ahead and taken off a total of 20 thousandths in really tiny little increments to bring it down to the right thickness overall. So, and as you can see, I've got the brass protectors on the jaws that will protect the threads on the end caps. Okay, here I am making the back cuts, the back relief cuts. Here's one I just finished. You can see the nice, you can't even tell looking at this is a 2-piece item. So I'm really thrilled about how these are coming out. I've got it chucked up in my 3-jaw chuck, and I'm taking small cuts. I'm taking only like 10 thou deep at a time, something like that. I don't know if you can see that real well. I'm feeding manually by hand, just taking it really easy. And I'm able to use my DRO. I've got my 0-point mark, so you can kind of tell when you get out to the 0, 60 thou more to go, it's just 30 thou of travel. So, get out to the 0, close, 10 more thou, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 0, crank it back to the center, and I'm unlocking, using this feature to lock my carriage. As you can see, that was good. That was 19, so I'll go like 24 here. Lock it in, put off the swarf, and go backwards again. So I'll keep doing this. I'll bring it back and show you the finish. Okay, when I finish cutting the little dish in the back, I'll take my deburring tool, run it around the center just to cut off if there's a little wire room left. And then what I like to use, I've got this brass scrubbing brush that I got from Harbor Freight. I like to just cram that thing in there gently, and it'll clean and deburr the threads a little bit. Really makes a nice smooth finish. So we'll finish there. As you can see, I'm holding this in the little notches in the 3-jaw chuck. And let's feel how the finish feels. Oh yeah, it's very smooth. That wire brush trick is definitely worth doing. Hey folks, wanted to take a minute to talk about the mandrel that I made to hold the 2-piece end caps now that they're ready to have the notches milled in them. This is a piece of stub axle. My good friend Russ worked at a machine shop, and they were manufacturing, I think these were axles for golf carts or something like that, and they had some drops or pieces that didn't pass their quality test, and it's fantastic steel. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's great stuff, and he gave me a bucket full of these one day, and I've slowly but surely I've used a bunch of them up, and this is one of them, so thank you, Russ. Still making use of that stuff you gave me. So I took it, and the first thing I did was I turned the shaft part of it down to 3/4 of an inch. It's a little bit larger than that, so I put it in 3/4 because that would be a size I can hold in my 5C collet chuck. Then I left this part's about an inch and a quarter, about 1.20 inches. I just left that as is. I turned this shoulder down to 1 inch here, And then I made this part of it 690 so that it's actually slightly less than 690 so that the end caps can fit on there. There's a shake-free fit, basically. Nice snug fit. I got close and then I filed it till they both just fit on there. And then, let me put that on, I'll show you what I have in mind. So then I turned this part down to a 1/2 inch and I threaded it 1/2 inch 20 because I'm thinking about doing like Maddie did and use the 1/2 inch 20 nuts, the commercially available ones on the end of the spindle. So that's it. So I'll just tighten it up, snug it up a little bit so it won't go anywhere. Now I can use my 5C collet block in the mill to mill the little slots. There, the slots are 3/32 of an inch wide by 1/16 of an inch deep. So I've put a 3/32 inch end mill in the mill, and I'll just start milling that in a second. I'll bring you back for that process. Hey, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but I thought I'd show a shot of me using the collet block here. I've already cut a couple of these, so I'm just taking 20 thou at a time. I could probably cut the whole thing in one pass, but I just don't want to break my little 3/32 inch end mill. So I'm just feeding it by hand. Starting from the outside side so I don't go into the threads. So go down to 40, 42, 44, like that. Feed it in nice and easy. The 3/32 inch end mill, and I've got it set up so it's right at the center line here. One more cut, we'll be done. Okay, right at 62 thou. There we go. Pretty much all there is to it. So 3 more of these and I'll be done with this one. They'll do the end and I'll show you the finished product when I have them all done. Okay, so this will be the last segment for this week's update, and seems like a lot of work just for these end caps, which were halfway made by last week anyway, but they came out really, really nice. If you can see that, hopefully you can. Really pleased that I tried this way to make the labyrinth seals, and also learned that, you know, nobody ever talks about the inside grooves there that create the labyrinth, part of the labyrinth. So at least I was able to bring that out. I haven't seen that mentioned on any other websites or anything. So pleased about how these came out. And the next thing will be starting to make the spindle. I'm going to make it as a 2-piece also on the front ring. So I have, this is a bar of stress-proof steel that I mail ordered it when I ordered some of the other stuff, and I don't know if I've ever worked stress-proof before, so it'll be an interesting thing. So that I'll start on that today. My idea is I'll make the collar part first that's going to slip over the spindle that will go into the labyrinth seals, and get that completed, and then I'll have some experience at least machining the stress proof, and then I'll know what to do. Make the spindle, make the pulley, and the other part that's going to have to get made is the spacer in between that kind of keeps the separation between the bearings and so forth. So we'll get started on that, but this will be the last segment for this week. Again, thanks everybody for joining. Thanks for the great comments. Appreciate all the subscriptions. I always enjoy reading your comments. If you have thoughts, please let me know. And hopefully this has been helpful for you if you're making your own Quorn. Take care, everybody. I'll see you next time.